Is the Sabbath a part of the new covenant? What do they have to do with each other? You see, many Christians believe that because we live in the new covenant, that somehow releases them from obedience to the Sabbath commandment. Is that true, though? There are a few points as to why I believe that the Sabbath is part of the new covenant, and we do need to still be keeping it. Many Christians believe that the Sabbath was just for the Jews due to the amount of times the Sabbath was connected with the Jews in the Old Testament. However, if that's the case, then it wouldn't have been created at creation, it would have been created at Sinai. Now, of course, one of the other obvious facts about this is that there were no Jews at creation. There were no Jews in Eden. There was Adam, there was Eve. And back then, there was no such thing as nationality or ethnicity. And so because the Sabbath was given to the world at creation, the Sabbath is then for the whole world, not just for one ethnic group. Another fact is this, that in Ezekiel chapter 20, verses 12 and 20, God first lists the Sabbath as being the sign that He sanctifies us, and the sign that He is our God. Now I know that many people will come at me and say Ezekiel 20 was written just for the Jews. However, when we get to New Testament Christianity, what we find is something very fascinating. It ceases to be about literal Israel and becomes about spiritual Israel. In other words, Christianity. Paul says he is a Jew, which is one inwardly. Here in Galatians he says, if you be Christ, then you are Abraham's seed. Connected with that is the amount of Old Testament laws that connect obedience for not only Israel, but also for the Gentiles among them. In Numbers 15, verses 15 and 16, God says the same law will be for both you, the children of Israel, and for the strangers among you. Isaiah 56 also promises blessings on the Gentiles who keep the Sabbath. Those who came to connect themselves with the God of Israel were to keep the Sabbath. And as I said near the beginning of the video, many Christians claim that the new covenant releases us from obedience to the Sabbath commandment. However, if the Sabbath was just for the Jews, then the new covenant is just for the Jews too. Let's look at Jeremiah 31 and Hebrews 8. God says, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. In Hebrews 8, this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. And most Christians don't have a problem with claiming new covenant blessings, but they don't want to claim the new covenant Sabbath. But again, in Galatians, Paul tells us this. He says in verse 7, know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. And again in verse 9, then they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. Now the sign of accepting the old covenant was circumcision, just like the sign of accepting the new covenant is baptism by immersion. And in the Bible, it makes it clear that circumcision was done away with, along with the feasts and the sacrifices. Jesus himself said, Moses gave you circumcision. Paul in the New Covenant said circumcision is nothing. He said that Titus was not compelled to be circumcised. Now here's the thing, Paul tells us that the Old Covenant was confirmed at Mount Sinai 430 years after Abraham. And what we see in Genesis chapter 2 and in Exodus 16 is that the Sabbath was already there. It was there even before sin. So it's not part of where verse 19 says that the law was added because of sin, because the Ten Commandments were already there. And what Paul is saying is that the Old Covenant cannot disannul the covenant that was already there. Because you see, God had already made covenants with people like Noah, with Abraham, and with others. And if the Old Covenant coming along did not disannul the covenants he made with the people before, then the New Covenant coming along does not disannul the Ten Commandments. And as I said, the Bible makes it clear that circumcision was abolished along with the other handwriting of ordinances. But the Bible does not give us evidence anywhere that the Sabbath would be abolished or altered or changed in any way. And Hebrews 9 even goes so far as to say this, that a last will and testament is not of any force unless its maker is dead, and after they're dead it cannot be changed. So my challenge to everyone who thinks the New Covenant does not require Sabbath observance is understand that if it was going to be changed, Jesus himself would have to say it, because he is the covenant maker. So my challenge is, if the Sabbath was changed, find me where Jesus himself would tell us that.